First up today, we were going to talk about Linda Yaccarino suddenly deciding to part X. This came as a bit of a surprise. I think people had long expected that Yaccarino, the former NBC marketing and advertising executive, who had a great career there, who was well respected, led to some real head scratching when she decided to join Elon a couple of years back. When he took over Twitter, reshaped it into X. We saw advertisers flee en masse. Hate speech started to really become a major problem on the platform. A lot of users fled. Yaccarino, though, was tasked with coming in and bringing those advertisers back. 2 years later, though, seems like she's tried her best. She's done some work to keep big brands on the platform in some respects, but clearly too much had happened here, and she'd fallen out of favor with Elon. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think she had an impossible task. And I mean, actually, she did bring some advertisers back, not in the same level as it was pre-Elon acquisition, but she did bring some advertisers back. And so that actually shows, I think, her strength and her advertiser relationships, that she was even able to overcome all of Elon's antics to at least get them spending a little money back on the platform. But I think this is also what led to her downfall, which was, that she became a voice for advertisers who wanted brand safety. And my understanding, talking to people familiar with, the dynamic between her and Elon, is that Elon started to sour on her when he kept getting these requests for brand safety tools or requests to, frankly, tone down his own antics on the platform, and that he didn't want to do any of that. He didn't have any patience, obviously, with advertisers. He famously or infamously at the DealBook Summit a couple of years ago told them to basically go to hell or F you or some version of that, right? In that profanity-laced interview with Andrew Ross.
He told Bob Iger to go fuck yourself.
Oh, there you go. Yes, he did. And so he has no patience for advertiser complaints. And Linda, if her job is to bring advertisers to the platform, has to advocate for the things that they want. And of course, advertisers want, especially on social media, they want brand safety tools. They want to know that their ad is not going to be adjacent to like a white supremacist advocating, for the Holocaust or whatever. And I think, at least my understanding is that this really soured their relationship, and she fell out of favor. And that became clear earlier this year, in particular, when Elon had his AI company, XAI, acquire X and effectively layer Linda Yaccarino. And so now she was reporting into this new structure, didn't have as much direct access to Elon, and that was really where the writing on the wall was. And the people I was talking to yesterday, people inside and outside the company, they had anticipated she was going to be out for a while. That they were basically guessing, is it going to be in the next month? They weren't sure exactly when it was going to happen, but they did anticipate this. And my understanding as well, talking to people, is that Linda had been meeting in New York City and talking on the phone with her old friends in the media and advertising world as she weighed her decision. And so I think for a lot of people, this might have caught them by surprise. At the same time, people who knew Linda, people inside the company, this was not a surprise at all.
Yeah, I kind of think she was in an impossible position here, which she, to be fair, got into on her own. She didn't have to leave NBC, right? So it was something where, sure, you can come over here to X, maybe you can help with its turnaround effort, but maybe she didn't quite understand what it was that Elon was doing, what it is that this, mercurial Tesla billionaire wanted to do with the platform, right? His priority was from day one to emphasize quote unquote free speech, right? He's a free speech absolutist by allowing almost any kind of speech on the platform.
Except speech he disagrees with. In that case, he wants to censor it.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Right. And they sued Media Matters, for instance, and they're still suing them, and other groups. And so they claimed that they supported free speech, but
yeah. And all the journalists that were at one point banned from the platform and then brought back as long as they would take down their tweets that reported on Musk's activities. The list goes on and on. But she was sort of in an impossible position, right? Like, she's supposed to court advertisers and brands and bring them back to the platform. Except as soon as they would do that, then their advertisements would be placed on the website or on the app next to, really, really nasty, gross, racist, hateful stuff. And I mean, no brand wants to be a part of that, right? I mean,
when you log on to X, the first things you see are Elon's tweets. And there's a high probability if you see an Elon tweet, it's going to be pushing a conspiracy theory, pushing some sort of MAGA talking point, some sort of inappropriate meme. And that's what advertisers are that's where they're advertising. And then this week, of course, we have to have this conversation. Elon's AI bot, Grok, started praising Adolf Hitler and literally gave instructions to one user on how to commit rape.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And it's
so shocking,
box, right?
Yeah, it's so shocking and so gross and unimaginable that sort of the worst fears in some ways about what could happen with AI, just sort of setting it loose publicly without guardrails. Like we're just sort of watching it in real time play out on Elon Musk's platform. And Linda is supposed to be out there as the CEO defending these decisions, claiming that they're maybe her own. I mean, for a while we saw right. I was gonna say for a while we saw her actually
took credit for a lot of this stuff. She said she was working hand in hand with Elon. And so this is her legacy as well as Elon's. I mean, even though I think we all know that Elon was calling the shots, she still went out in the public and defended this stuff. She in her own message yesterday announcing her departure, which she framed as her own decision, she said she was very proud of the historic business turnaround that she had led over at X and celebrated it. And her real legacy is holding Elon's hand and serving as his heat shield as he destroyed the platform and transformed it into a toxic, like MAGA swamp. And so I mean, she torched her reputation, her once sterling reputation in the process. So the question too is now like, where is she going to work after this? But if just to point out though, she was somewhat successful in bringing back some advertisers. I mean, despite all of this, she, for instance, convinced the NFL to renew their deal with Twitter or X to where they exclusively post like NFL clips. And that has locked in, I think, a fair amount of audience where, if you care about sports, you want to be on Twitter or X because that's where the clips are. That's where that audience is. And so she, despite Elon's reckless and appalling behavior, she still did manage to do, the best job she could. It just was never going to be enough. And frankly, the question too now is, who are they going to replace her with? And if they thought that if Elon was not happy with the advertising revenue coming in under Linda Yaccarino, I mean, if he just appoints one of his like insider, one of his businessmen or whatever to come and run this company, it's going to be a lot worse. And so the question of what happens to X now too without Linda, I think is open.
Yeah, I mean, Linda clearly gave it a veneer of credibility. And that was something that will be sorely missed if she's not there or there's somebody who knows what they're doing. We did see a report from eMarketer, which took a look at the advertising revenues coming in to X over the last few years. And since Musk's takeover of Twitter, they'd shed like 51% of advertising revenue over the last 2 years. And that's that's a huge amount of money to be losing and to try to course correct. And they clearly tried their best, but it did not go well. In fact, it reached this real boiling point where we saw that Twitter or I guess X, I always want to call it Twitter, but X and Musk decided to even go after advertisers who had decided that this is not the place for us. We don't want to be here. We don't want to support. We don't want to pay money to a platform that allows for this kind of speech or accelerates it with the algorithm. And so we saw X staff send threatening letters to advertisers that if you don't come back, that we may file a lawsuit. It's hard to imagine now that Yaccarino, having overseen that, is now going to be able to walk out of this role into something else in the established media space.